The narrative of Deborah, the only female judge in Israel's history, is a profoundly compelling story of immense courage, unwavering faith, and extraordinary leadership during a period fraught with challenges and turbulence. In a society overwhelmingly dominated by male leadership, Deborah distinguished herself as a remarkable figure, serving not only as a political leader, but also as a revered prophetess, deeply respected by the entire nation of Israel. Her story invites us to reconsider our preconceived notions about leadership, proving that God can work through anyone, irrespective of their gender or societal position, to achieve his divine purposes. Let's explore this captivating narrative and uncover the inspiring ways in which an extraordinary woman, guided by God, helped to transform the trajectory of Israel's history. Following Joshua's death, Israel transitioned into a tumultuous phase in its history, known as the era of the Judges, characterized by widespread instability and uncertainty. This was an era marked by profound political turmoil and spiritual instability for God's chosen people, as they struggled to maintain their faithfulness to Him. The lack of centralized leadership during this time gave rise to widespread moral decay and social chaos, leaving the nation in a state of disarray. The Book of Judges provides a vivid and succinct summary of this chaotic and challenging situation that Israel faced during this period. In chapter 21, verse 25, we find the apt description, "In those days Israel had no king. Everyone did as they saw fit," capturing the essence of the disorder prevalent in that time. Everyone did as they saw fit. Throughout this turbulent period, Israel found itself trapped in a recurring pattern of apostasy, severe oppression, and eventual deliverance. The people repeatedly turned their backs on God, embracing the worship of idols from the surrounding nations, which led them to endure harsh suffering at the hands of their enemies. In their distress and anguish, they would cry out to God for help, and in His mercy, He would respond by raising up a judge to deliver them from their oppressors. This repeated cycle was not merely a series of historical events. It was a profound reflection of the covenantal relationship between God and His people, Israel. The Book of Judges provides a detailed and insightful description of this recurring pattern that defined Israel's spiritual journey during this era. In Judges chapter 2, verses 14 to 16, we find a succinct yet powerful explanation of this recurring cycle that plagued the nation. In His anger against Israel, the Lord gave them into the hands of raiders who plundered them. He sold them to their enemies all around, whom they were no longer able to resist. Whenever Israel went out to fight, the hand of the Lord was against them to defeat them, just as He had sworn to them. They were in great distress. Then the Lord raised up judges who saved them out of the hands of these raiders. This cycle serves not merely as a sequence of historical episodes, but as a profound and enduring testament to God's unwavering faithfulness, even when His people were persistently unfaithful. Each time the people of Israel strayed from the Lord, He permitted them to face the painful consequences of their own disobedience and rebellion. Nevertheless, God, in His infinite mercy and compassion, never abandoned His people entirely, always leaving a path for their restoration. Whenever they cried out in desperation for divine assistance, God, in His boundless mercy, always heard their pleas and responded to their cries. It was within this recurring backdrop of apostasy and relentless oppression that one of Israel's most formidable challenges emerged, testing their faith and resilience. The Book of Judges offers a vivid and detailed account of this pivotal and critical moment in Israel's history. In chapter 4, verses 1 to 3, we read again, "The Israelites did evil in the eyes of the Lord now that Ehud was dead. So the Lord sold them into the hands of Jabin, king of Canaan, who reigned in Hazo-Sisera. The commander of his army was based in Hirosheth Hagoyim because he had 900 chariots fitted with iron and had cruelly oppressed the Israelites for 20 years. They cried to the Lord for help. Jabin, the ruler of Canaan, alongside his formidable general Sisera, established a harsh and oppressive regime over Israel, leveraging their superior military strength, which included 900 iron chariots, a technological marvel of the time. For an agonizing 20 years, they dominated and subjugated God's people, leaving them in a state of constant fear and despair. This period of oppression was neither fleeting nor mild. It was an extended and severe affliction that left deep scars on the people of Israel. For 2 entire decades, the Israelites endured the crushing yoke of the Canaanite regime, which stripped them of freedom and hope. The mention of iron chariots in the biblical text highlights their status as advanced military technology for that era, symbolizing an overwhelming advantage on the battlefield. These chariots provided the Canaanites with a decisive edge on the battlefield, particularly when facing Israel's primarily infantry-based forces, which lacked comparable resources or technology. Together with Sisera's strategic leadership, this technological superiority made the Canaanite army all but unbeatable. From a purely human perspective, the Israelites found themselves trapped in a continual state of fear and anxiety, enduring relentless abuse, exploitation, and humiliation at the hands of their Canaanite overlords. The suffering inflicted upon the Israelites extended far beyond the battlefield. It permeated every aspect of life, encompassing economic exploitation and social degradation. It is highly probable that God's people were burdened with exorbitant taxes, severe limitations on their freedom to move or worship, and, quite possibly, subjected to harsh forms of forced labor under the Canaanite rule. The situation appeared utterly bleak and without resolution, leaving many to question if God had abandoned them or turned away from their plight. At this pivotal and seemingly hopeless juncture, God, in his steadfast faithfulness to his covenant, raised up Deborah to serve as both a judge and a prophetess, offering renewed hope to Israel. The scriptures introduce Deborah in a way that underscores her unparalleled significance and divine appointment as a leader of God's people. In Judges chapter 4, verses 4 and 5, it is written, "Now Deborah, a prophet, the wife of Lapidoth, was leading Israel at that time. She held court under the palm of Deborah between Ramah and Bethel in the hill country of Ephraim, and the Israelites went up to her to have their disputes decided." Deborah stands as an extraordinary and unprecedented figure in Israel's history, a leader whose role defied the conventions of her time. In her capacity as a prophetess, Deborah was uniquely entrusted with receiving divine revelations directly from God, which she faithfully conveyed to the people of Israel. This spiritual office held immense significance, particularly in an era when the nation had drifted far from God's laws and covenant, desperately needing guidance to return to his ways. Through the leadership of Deborah, God was reasserting his presence among his people, reestablishing a direct channel of communication to call them back to the sacred covenant they had forsaken. In her judicial role, Deborah adjudicated disputes and rendered significant decisions that impacted the entire nation, combining wisdom and divine guidance. Her position as judge encompassed legal arbitration, administrative oversight, and occasionally military leadership, a blend of responsibilities rarely seen in a single individual. The judges of Israel were far more than simple mediators or legal figures. They were divinely appointed leaders who guided and delivered the people in their darkest times. They served as chosen instruments of God, raised up to lead his people and provide deliverance during periods of crisis and oppression. The fact that Deborah, a woman, held such a prominent and authoritative role was nothing short of extraordinary for the era, powerfully illustrating that God's choice of leaders transcends human expectations and societal norms. The palm of Deborah, referenced in the biblical text, rose to prominence as a significant location for judgment and wise counsel in Israel. This palm tree, located strategically between Ramah and Bethel in the hill country of Ephraim, represented much more than a mere geographical landmark. It came to symbolize both divine justice and the tangible presence of God among his people, serving as a beacon of hope and fairness. Israelites from far and wide traveled to this site, drawn by Deborah's profound wisdom and divinely inspired guidance in resolving their disputes and concerns. Seated beneath the shade of this symbolic palm tree, Deborah attentively listened to the grievances of her people and, with God's guidance, provided solutions that were both wise and just. This vivid scene serves as a timeless reminder of the critical importance of leaders remaining approachable and connected to the people they serve. Unlike many leaders, Deborah did not retreat to the isolation of a palace or temple. She remained among the people, accessible and engaged. She positioned herself to be readily available, always prepared to hear the people's concerns and to deliver divine guidance tailored to their needs. The deep respect and unwavering trust that the Israelites placed in Deborah were particularly remarkable in a patriarchal society where women seldom held any public leadership roles. Deborah earned recognition and respect across the entire nation of Israel, a testament to her integrity, wisdom, and divine appointment. Her authority stemmed not only from her official role as a judge, but also from her unshakable integrity and her deeply rooted relationship with God, which inspired confidence in her leadership. Deborah's emergence as a leader signified a profound turning point in Israel's history, heralding a new chapter of hope and deliverance for the nation. Following 2 decades of relentless oppression, the Israelites finally found in Deborah a leader capable of guiding them back to God and leading them toward freedom and restoration. Deborah's presence served as a continual reminder that even in the bleakest and most trying of times, God had not forsaken his people, but remained faithful to his covenant. With Deborah now firmly established as both judge and prophetess in Israel, the stage was set for a profound and dramatic change in the nation's fortunes. The cries of the people for deliverance had reached God, and through Deborah, he was preparing to respond with power and purpose to bring salvation to his people. The book of Judges details the remarkable way in which God initiated this transformative process of liberation for his people. In Judges chapter 4, verse 6, the text reveals, "She sent for Barak, son of Abinoam, from Kadesh in Naphtali, and said to him, 'The Lord, the God of Israel, commands you. Go, take with you 10,000 men of Naphtali and Zebulun, and lead them up to Mount Tabor.'" This divinely ordained command, conveyed through Deborah, signaled the start of a pivotal new chapter in the unfolding history of Israel. God, in his sovereign wisdom, not only appointed Deborah as the leader of Israel, but also chose Barak to serve as the military commander who would confront and defeat their oppressors. The selection of Barak was by no means a coincidence. It was a deliberate and strategic choice by God. Barak hailed from Kadesh, a city in the region of Naphtali, one of the areas that had suffered the most under the brutal oppression of the Canaanites. This geographical and personal connection meant that Barak had a deep and vested interest in the liberation of his people from their suffering. Additionally, as someone intimately familiar with the region's terrain, Barak possessed a significant strategic advantage, which would prove invaluable in the forthcoming battle against the Canaanites. The divine strategy, as revealed to Deborah by God, was both precise and clear in its objectives. Barak was instructed to rally an army of 10,000 men, specifically drawn from the tribes of Naphtali and Zebulun. These 2 neighboring tribes, situated in the northern region of Israel, were conveniently located near Mount Tabor, the designated rendezvous point for the assembled forces. The selection of Mount Tabor as the assembly site was deliberate and laden with strategic significance. Positioned at the intersection of the territories belonging to Naphtali, Zebulun, and Issachar, Mount Tabor's location made it an optimal and strategic choice for the army's assembly. With an elevation of approximately 588 meters above sea level, Mount Tabor offered a commanding view of the surrounding areas, particularly the Jezreel Valley, where the decisive battle was anticipated to unfold. Deborah faithfully continued to communicate God's instructions to Barak, ensuring that he fully understood the divine plan for the impending confrontation. In Judges chapter 4, verse 7, Deborah declares, "I will lead Sisera, the commander of Jabin's army, with his chariots and his troops to the Kishon River and give him into your hands." This segment of the divine message is especially intriguing as it reveals not only the promise of victory, but also hints at the strategy that God intended to use. God's message not only guaranteed victory, but also unveiled a portion of the divine strategy that would bring it about. The strategy involved drawing Sisera and his formidable army to the Kishon River, setting the stage for their defeat. The Kishon River, typically a modest stream, had the potential to transform into a perilous torrent during periods of heavy rainfall, making it a key element of the plan. As the narrative unfolds, we will see how this natural feature became a pivotal factor in determining the outcome of the battle. God's assurance of delivering Sisera into Barak's hands was a definitive promise of victory, grounded in his unwavering faithfulness. Yet this divine guarantee necessitated both faith in God's word and decisive action on Barak's part to bring it to fruition. Barak needed to place unwavering trust in the divine command conveyed by Deborah and demonstrate that trust by assembling the army and preparing for the impending battle. Barak's reaction to this divine call offers profound insights into his character, his understanding of faith, and his recognition of the spiritual dimensions of leadership. In Judges chapter 4, verse 8, we read Barak's reply. Barak said to her, "If you go with me, I will go, but if you don't go with me, I won't go." At first, Barak's statement might appear to reflect a lack of faith or confidence in God's promise. After all, Barak had been given a direct assurance of triumph from the Lord, which might have seemed sufficient to embolden him. This raises the question, why would Barak hesitate to proceed without Deborah's presence? However, upon closer examination, Barak's request reveals a more complex and thoughtful perspective on his approach to the mission. Barak understood and valued the significance of Deborah's role as a prophetess, acknowledging that her presence symbolized divine guidance and assurance. To Barak, Deborah's presence was a tangible representation of God's involvement and guidance in the mission. Having Deborah accompany him into battle would act as a continuous source of reassurance to both Barak and the Israelite army that God was actively leading their cause. Furthermore, in a period where spiritual leadership was just as vital as military strategy, Deborah's presence had the potential to uplift the morale of the troops and instill them with courage and determination. Deborah's response to Barak's request sheds additional light on her character and understanding of God's plan. In verse 9, she says, "Certainly I will go with you," said Deborah. "But because of the course you are taking, the honor will not be yours, for the Lord will deliver Sisera into the hands of a woman." Deborah readily agreed to join Barak, showcasing her unwavering commitment to Israel's cause and her courage to lead from the front rather than remaining in the safety of a distant position. At the same time, she delivered a significant prophecy that carried both a challenge and an unexpected twist in the unfolding events. According to her prophecy, the ultimate honor of victory would not go to Barak, but would instead be given to a woman, a striking statement for that time. This prophecy stands out as remarkable for several compelling reasons that add depth to the narrative. First, it directly challenged the cultural norms of the time, which largely reserved military glory and honor for male leaders and warriors. Second, it introduced a sense of suspense and anticipation into the story, leaving the identity of the woman in question. The audience is left to wonder, who could this woman possibly be, and how would she factor into the outcome? As the narrative progresses, the identity of this woman and the role she plays will prove to be both unexpected and extraordinary. Once Deborah and Barak had reached their agreement, the meticulous preparations for the upcoming battle commenced. There Barak summoned Zebulun and Naphtali, and 10,000 men went up under his command. Deborah also went up with him. Organizing and assembling an army for this mission would have been an immensely challenging and demanding task for Barak. After enduring 2 decades of relentless oppression, it is likely that many Israelites were deeply demoralized, hesitant, and filled with fear. To rally 10,000 men who were willing to confront the formidable Canaanite forces, armed with their dreaded iron chariots, demanded an extraordinary level of courage, faith, and trust in God's promise. The impending confrontation with the Canaanites was a critical turning point in Israel's history, representing the culmination of 20 long years of suffering under the oppressive rule of King Jabin of Canaan. This confrontation between the Israelite forces, under the leadership of Deborah and Barak, and the dominant Canaanite army, led by the formidable Sisera, was now on the brink of unfolding. The book of Judges offers a vivid and detailed account of the sequence of events that defined this pivotal battle. In chapter 4, verse 12, the text recounts, "When they told Sisera that Barak, son of Abnom, had gone up to Mount Tabor, this news of Israel's mobilization caught the Canaanite general, Sisera, off guard, as he had likely assumed complete dominance over the region. Sisera responded to this unexpected development with swift and decisive action, determined to quash the rebellion before it gained momentum. Judges chapter 4, verse 13 recounts, "Sisera gathered together his 900 iron chariots and all his men from Harosheth Hagoyim to the Kishon River." This large-scale mobilization revealed the seriousness with which Sisera viewed the threat posed by the Israelite forces, despite their apparent disadvantage. Sisera was resolute in his determination to obliterate the rebellion, utilizing the full strength of his technologically superior and well-equipped army. The 900 iron chariots, the pride of Sisera's forces, represented the Canaanite army's most significant tactical advantage and a symbol of their battlefield dominance. These advanced war machines, a marvel of military technology at the time, were dreaded for their speed, crushing power, and devastating ability to break through infantry formations with ease. For the Israelite soldiers, who were largely infantry without comparable weaponry, the thought of facing such formidable chariots would have been nothing short of terrifying. The decisive turning point of this battle is vividly captured in Judges chapter 4, verse 14. Then Deborah said to Barak, "Go. This is the day the Lord has given Sisera into your hands. Has not the Lord gone ahead of you?" So Barak went down Mount Tabor with 10,000 men following him. Deborah's command for Barak to initiate the attack was far more than a simple military directive. It was a bold proclamation of faith in God's promise. In issuing this command, Deborah was reaffirming God's assurance of victory while simultaneously infusing courage and determination into the Israelite soldiers. Her words, "Has not the Lord gone ahead of you?" served as a powerful reminder to the Israelites that they were not entering this battle alone. God himself was leading the charge. The image of Barak descending from the heights of Mount Tabor, trailed by his 10,000-strong army, must have been an awe-inspiring and morale-boosting sight. This army, long oppressed and downtrodden under Canaanite rule, now marched with boldness and renewed faith to confront their oppressors head-on. At the same time, Sisera's Canaanite forces moved forward with confidence, bolstered by their 900 iron chariots and their well-armed soldiers, expecting an easy victory. Sisera likely anticipated a swift and decisive triumph, given the overwhelming strength and technological advantage of his forces. The open valley below Mount Tabor appeared to be an ideal setting for deploying the full destructive power of Sisera's iron chariots against the Israelite infantry. Yet what unfolded next was completely unforeseen and defied all expectations, altering the course of the battle entirely. Judges chapter 4 verse 15 states, "At Barak's advance, the Lord routed Sisera and all his chariots and army by the sword." This declaration attributes the victory solely to God, emphasizing that an extraordinary and divine intervention took place during the battle. The account strongly implies that God's intervention directly caused confusion and chaos to spread throughout Sisera's once formidable army. While the text does not provide explicit details, it is evident that unexpected circumstances arose to neutralize the Canaanites' superior technology and shift the advantage to the Israelites. Many biblical scholars propose that natural phenomena played a significant and possibly miraculous role in determining the outcome of this battle. Evidence within the narrative and its poetic retelling suggests that a sudden storm may have occurred, dramatically altering the terrain to favor the Israelite forces. The typically modest Kishon River may have transformed into a raging torrent due to the heavy rain, creating treacherous conditions for Sisera's army. If such a storm indeed occurred, its impact on the battle would have been nothing short of transformative, reshaping the dynamics of the confrontation. A torrential rainfall would have softened the valley's soil, turning it into thick mud that rendered the Canaanites' prized iron chariots immobile and more of a burden than a benefit. The chariot horses, struggling to drag the heavy iron vehicles through the clinging mud, would have left their riders vulnerable and exposed to attacks from the lighter and more agile Israelite foot soldiers. Furthermore, if the Kishon River overflowed its banks due to the storm, it is likely that many Canaanite soldiers, especially those trapped in their chariots, were swept away by the surging floodwaters. Conversely, the Israelite soldiers, unencumbered by heavy equipment and well acquainted with the local terrain, would have found themselves at a considerable advantage under these conditions. The battlefield under such adverse conditions must have descended into utter chaos, with the once confident Canaanite army overwhelmed by the sudden turn of events. Picture the Canaanite forces, initially secure in their technological dominance, suddenly rendered powerless and disoriented by the sheer force of nature acting against them. The very chariots that symbolized their strength and dominance now became death traps, bogged down and useless in the flooded and muddy terrain. Trapped in the mud or swept away by the rising waters, Panic and confusion must have rippled rapidly through Sisera's ranks, shattering their cohesion and morale. Witnessing the destruction of their chariots and the defeat or drowning of their comrades, many of the Canaanite soldiers likely abandoned the fight and fled for their lives. The confusion and disarray within Sisera's army, as described in the biblical account, likely stemmed from this sudden confluence of unforeseen events and the harsh natural conditions that unfolded on the battlefield. At the same time, the Israelite forces, emboldened by the clear evidence of divine intervention in their favor, likely pressed forward with heightened energy and determination. Verse 16 tells us Barak pursued the chariots and army as far as Harosheth Hagoyim, and all Sisera's troops fell by the sword. Not a man was left. This unyielding pursuit by Barak and his men ensured that the victory was not merely a temporary triumph, but a decisive and total defeat of the Canaanite forces. For Israel, simply defeating the Canaanite forces on the battlefield was insufficient to secure their long-term freedom. To guarantee Israel's liberation from oppression, it was essential to utterly dismantle the military power of their enemies, leaving no capacity for retaliation. The statement, "not a man was left," holds profound significance, underscoring the complete annihilation of Sisera's forces and the magnitude of Israel's victory. This phrase emphasizes the totality of the triumph, leaving no doubt that Israel had achieved an absolute and unassailable victory. The formerly dominant Canaanite army, whose iron chariots had struck fear into their enemies, was now completely destroyed, never to pose a threat again. This monumental victory brought an end to the 20-year period of harsh Canaanite oppression, signaling a new era of freedom and hope for Israel. Verse 23 concludes the account of this historic battle with the statement, "On that day, God subdued Jabin, king of Canaan, before the Israelites." This concluding verse reinforces the central theme of the story. The victory was a direct result of God's intervention, not merely the product of human effort or military strategy. This confrontation with the Canaanites was far more than a simple military engagement. It was a spiritual and national turning point for Israel. It stands as one of the most decisive moments in Israel's history, marking the conclusion of 2 decades of severe oppression and subjugation. Moreover, it served as a profound demonstration of God's unparalleled power and unshakable faithfulness to his covenant people. For the Israelites, this resounding victory was undoubtedly a transformative moment, restoring their faith in God's providence and renewing their sense of national identity. After enduring decades of fear, humiliation, and subjugation, they now stood triumphant over their once dominant oppressors, reclaiming their freedom and dignity. The renewed confidence and courage that arose from this day's events would leave a lasting imprint, shaping not only the lives of individuals, but also the collective spirit and future of the nation as a whole. Following the catastrophic defeat of his army, Sisera, the once dreaded commander of the Canaanite forces, found himself alone and in a state of utter desperation. The commander, who had confidently led 900 iron chariots into battle against Israel, was now reduced to fleeing on foot, frantically trying to evade Barak and the advancing Israelite forces. In his desperate attempt to survive, Sisera fled far from the battlefield, abandoning the carnage and ruin that had consumed his once mighty army. He was fleeing for his very life, fully aware that capture by the Israelites would undoubtedly result in his death. During his escape, Sisera likely reflected on the shocking and dramatic reversal of fortune that had brought him to this point. Merely hours before, he had been assured of his impending triumph over what he had perceived as the weak and rebellious Israelites. Now he was nothing more than a fugitive, his formidable army obliterated and his once feared power completely dismantled. Exhausted from the battle and consumed by desperation, Sisera sought a hiding place where he might find temporary safety. It was at this critical juncture that Sisera came across the camp of the Kenites, a nomadic people known for their neutrality. The Kenites, a nomadic tribe, had historically maintained peaceful relations with both the Israelites and the Canaanites, making their camp seem like a potential refuge. Sisera was aware of the existing peace agreement between Jabin, the king of Hazor, and the family of Heber the Kenite, which gave him a sense of hope for safety. Believing that this alliance would secure him protection, Sisera approached the Kenite camp with the hope of finding a safe haven. As he neared the camp, Sisera spotted a tent that belonged to Jael, the wife of Heber, a key figure in the Kenite community. In keeping with the customs of the time, Jael's tent was separate from that of her husband, providing her with her own private space. Spotting Jael outside her tent, Sisera approached her, seeking her help in the safety he desperately needed. Recognizing the approaching figure as Sisera, Jael stepped out of her tent to meet the defeated Canaanite general. Jael identified him instantly and, understanding the desperate state he was in, discerned that this was a pivotal moment of opportunity. Jael extended an invitation to Sisera, welcoming him into her tent and offering him both refuge and a place to rest. Feeling an immense sense of relief and gratitude, Sisera eagerly entered Jael's tent, believing he had finally found a safe haven. Completely drained from the intensity of battle and his frantic escape, the assurance of safety within Jael's tent was irresistible to the weary general. Confident in the existing peace agreement between King Jabin and the Kenites, Sisera allowed himself to relax, lowering his guard completely. Upon entering the tent, Sisera, parched from his desperate flight, requested some water to quench his thirst. Jael, however, chose to exceed his simple request for water, displaying an unexpected act of hospitality. Rather than giving him plain water, Jael offered Sisera milk from a skin, a gesture that likely deepened his sense of comfort and security. This unexpected kindness further reassured Sisera, convincing him that he was genuinely secure and could let down his defenses completely. Having consumed the milk and now feeling a sense of safety, Sisera, overwhelmed by exhaustion, requested that Jael keep watch at the entrance of the tent. He explicitly instructed Jael to deny to any inquirers that he was hiding there, believing this would ensure his survival. Fully assured of his safety, Sisera lay down to rest and, overcome by fatigue, quickly descended into a deep and vulnerable sleep. It was during this moment of vulnerability that Jael made a bold and decisive choice, one that would alter the course of Israel's history forever. As Sisera lay defenseless in deep sleep, Jael quietly took hold of a tent peg and a hammer, preparing for a decisive action. With great stealth, Jael approached the unsuspecting and slumbering general, ensuring her movements went unnoticed. In one swift, powerful, and precise motion, Jael drove the tent peg through Sisera's temple, piercing his skull and securing it into the ground beneath him. Jael's action was both swift and resolute, leaving no room for hesitation or error. Completely unaware and defenseless, Sisera was caught off guard in his sleep and died instantly as a result of Jael's strike. The once mighty general, who had ruled over Israel with fear and violence for 20 long years, met his ultimate downfall at the hands of a courageous woman in a simple tent amidst the wilderness. Jael's decision to kill Sisera was an extraordinary act of boldness, involving considerable personal risk given the potential consequences of her actions. Fully aware of the dangers and repercussions she might face if her actions were uncovered by Sisera's allies, Jael nevertheless carried out her plan. Despite these risks, Jael made the courageous choice to align herself with Israel, taking an instrumental role in their deliverance and victory. Meanwhile, Barak, undeterred by the chaos of the battlefield, pressed on in his determined pursuit of Sisera. Tracking the path of the fleeing general, Barak finally reached the camp of the Kenites, hoping to capture Sisera. As Barak drew near, he was greeted by Jael, who emerged from her tent with news that would bring the pursuit to a decisive conclusion. Jael called out to Barak, declaring, "Come and I will show you the man you are looking for." Both intrigued and slightly uncertain, Barak followed Jael into her tent, eager to see what she had discovered. Once inside, Barak was confronted with an astonishing sight. Sisera's lifeless body lay on the ground, the tent peg still embedded in his temple as evidence of his demise. For Barak, the sight of Sisera's lifeless form marked both a triumphant moment of victory and a profound sense of relief, as the threat to Israel was now completely neutralized. The man who had subjugated Israel for 2 decades, leading an army that once seemed unstoppable, now lay utterly defeated and powerless. Remarkably, Sisera's downfall had not been delivered by the hand of a great warrior, but rather through the courage and determination of an unassuming woman. This pivotal moment fulfilled the prophetic words spoken by Deborah before the battle, affirming the divine orchestration of events. Earlier, when Barak hesitated to proceed without Deborah's accompaniment, she had foretold that the ultimate honor of victory would be given to a woman. Now, in a manner both unexpected and extraordinary, Jael's decisive actions had brought Deborah's prophecy to fruition. The death of Sisera at the hands of Jael delivered the final, decisive blow to the Canaanites, effectively ending their dominance over Israel. With their once formidable general slain, their mighty army annihilated, and their feared iron chariots rendered useless, the era of Canaanite domination over Israel came to a conclusive end. In the wake of the resounding victory over the Canaanites and the death of Sisera, Deborah and Barak united to sing a song of triumph and thanksgiving to God. This song, preserved in Judges chapter 5, stands as one of the oldest examples of Hebrew poetry and provides a profound and poetic reflection on the extraordinary events that had just transpired. The song opens with a jubilant call to celebrate and give thanks for the Lord's intervention and deliverance. Deborah and Barak jointly invite the people of Israel to lift their voices in praise to the Lord for the magnificent deliverance He brought to His people. They humbly recognize and declare that the victory belonged entirely to God, who defeated Israel's oppressors and shattered the heavy yoke of their subjugation. At the outset of the song, Deborah refers to herself as a mother in Israel, a deeply symbolic title that highlights her nurturing leadership and the care she provided for the nation. Deborah addresses kings and princes, summoning them to listen to her song, thereby elevating the importance of the remarkable events she is about to recount. The song transitions into a retrospective account, vividly describing the dire state of Israel before the battle. It paints a picture of a nation in turmoil, where travelers avoided the main roads out of fear of ambushes and attacks. Villages lay desolate, and everyday life had come to a halt, paralyzed by fear and oppression, until Deborah emerged as a leader to restore order and hope. Deborah and Barak recount how the Israelites, by turning to new gods and forsaking the Lord, brought war and destruction to their very doorsteps. They lament that out of 40,000 Israelites, there was not a shield or spear to be found, emphasizing the nation's vulnerability and lack of preparation for war. The song shifts to honor and celebrate the tribes that answered the call to arms and courageously joined the battle. The tribes of Ephraim, Benjamin, Manasseh, Zebulun, and Issachar are singled out and praised for their bravery in sending their warriors to fight. The leaders of these tribes receive commendation for their extraordinary courage and their willingness to risk their lives for the liberation of Israel. Conversely, the song delivers sharp criticism toward the tribes that refrained from joining the fight, exposing their failure to act in Israel's time of need. The tribes of Reuben, Gilead, Gad, Dan, and Asher are reproached for remaining behind, focusing on their own concerns instead of standing alongside their brothers in battle. The song then shifts focus to recount the events of the battle itself, emphasizing its divine orchestration and significance. The kings of Canaan are described as assembling for battle, only to find themselves leaving empty-handed, taking no spoils of war. This alludes to their complete and devastating defeat, in which they not only failed to gain any plunder, but also suffered the total loss of their forces. One of the most fascinating lines in the song proclaims, "From the heavens the stars fought, from their courses they fought against Sisera." This vivid imagery implies divine or cosmic intervention during the battle, possibly referencing the natural phenomena, like the storm, that played a crucial role in Israel's victory. The song goes on to highlight the Kishon River, referring to it as an ancient river, and recounting how it swept away Sisera's forces in its powerful waters. This reinforces the earlier account, suggesting that natural elements, likely a sudden flood, were instrumental in bringing about the destruction of the Canaanite army. Jael, the brave woman who delivered the fatal blow to Sisera, is singled out for special commendation in this triumphant song. She is described as most blessed of women for her extraordinary courage and decisive action that contributed to Israel's deliverance. The song graphically recounts Jael's act of slaying Sisera, highlighting the irony of a powerful general meeting his end at the hands of a woman in the solitude of her tent. The song shifts to a poignant and evocative scene, imagining Sisera's mother anxiously awaiting her son's return from the battlefield. It portrays Sisera's mother gazing out of her window, troubled and questioning why her son's chariot is delayed. Her attendants attempt to soothe her worry, proposing that Sisera is only delayed because he is dividing the spoils of their presumed victory. This moment starkly contrasts the confident expectations of the Canaanites with the devastating reality of their defeat, further emphasizing the reversal brought about by God's intervention. The song ends on a triumphant and prayerful note, declaring, "So may all your enemies perish, O Lord, but may those who love you be like the sun when it rises in its strength." This closing verse encapsulates the song's overarching message: the Lord's absolute triumph over his enemies and the exaltation and blessing of those who remain faithful to him. Following this powerful song of victory, the scriptures record that the land had peace for 40 years, a testimony to the enduring impact of Deborah's leadership. This extended period of peace and stability was a direct consequence of the decisive defeat of the Canaanites and the wise, courageous leadership of Deborah. The Song of Deborah and Barak plays multiple pivotal roles in the broader narrative of Israel's history. Firstly, it provides a poetic and vivid summary of the battle's events, ensuring the memory of this pivotal moment in Israel's history would endure. Secondly, the song supplements the prose account by offering additional details, adding depth and nuance to the story. For instance, the song sheds light on which tribes rose to the occasion and joined the fight, and which tribes chose to remain uninvolved, a detail absent from the earlier narrative. Thirdly, the song acts as a theological reflection, interpreting the events as manifestations of God's will and divine intervention. It underscores, time and again, that the victory was granted by the Lord, not by Israel's military prowess or strategic ingenuity alone. This central theme aligns with the core message of the book of Judges. When Israel remains faithful to God, he ensures their triumph over their adversaries. Fourthly, the song functions as a communal celebration, inviting the people to unite in praising God for the miraculous victory he orchestrated. Beyond merely recounting the battle, it serves as a call to collective worship, encouraging the people to rejoice and glorify God for his deliverance. This celebratory aspect ensured that the memory of these events would be firmly embedded in Israel's national identity and collective consciousness. Lastly, the song functions as a poignant reminder for future generations, preserving the legacy of this victory for years to come. By being passed down and sung throughout the generations, it ensured the memory of this deliverance remained vibrant, inspiring future Israelites to trust in God during their own times of struggle and adversity. The Song of Deborah and Barak is remarkable not only for its profound content, but also for its sophisticated poetic form. Widely regarded as one of the oldest examples of Hebrew poetry, its vivid expressions and striking imagery render it a masterful and enduring work of literature. The structure of the song, seamlessly blending narrative, praise, and an evocative scene depicting Sisera's camp, reflects a high degree of literary sophistication and artistic skill. This composition indicates that even in the early stages of Israel's history, a well-established and vibrant tradition of poetic storytelling was already present. The song prominently employs parallelism, a hallmark of Hebrew poetry, which enhances its rhythm and reinforces its themes. Many lines feature slight but intentional variations, producing a rhythmic flow and emphasis that would have been especially impactful when performed or recited aloud. Following the resounding victory over the Canaanites and the triumphant Song of Deborah and Barak, Israel experienced a prolonged era of peace and flourishing prosperity. According to the book of Judges, the land had rest for 40 years, marking a significant period of tranquility and social stability for the Israelite nation. This extended period of peace stands as a testament to the remarkable effectiveness of Deborah's leadership and the enduring significance of her triumph over the Canaanites. The comprehensive defeat of Sisera and his formidable army eliminated the most significant external threat to Israel, granting the nation freedom from the constant fear of invasion or subjugation. Throughout this era of peace, Deborah continued her vital role as judge, providing guidance and leadership to the people of Israel. The wisdom and discernment that had been critical during the turbulent times of oppression proved equally indispensable in preserving peace and resolving disputes among the Israelites. Deborah's influence as a judge, prophetess, and military strategist was both profound and enduring, leaving an indelible mark on Israel's history. She remains a rare and extraordinary example of female leadership in an era and culture predominantly shaped by male authority. Her story continues to be a powerful testament to the truth that God can choose and use anyone, regardless of their gender or social standing, to fulfill his divine purposes. The impact of Deborah's leadership and faith extended far beyond the boundaries of her own lifetime, inspiring generations to come. Her story became a source of inspiration for future generations of Israelites, offering a timeless model of courage, unwavering faith, and wise leadership. The Song of Deborah, in particular, was recited and cherished for generations, ensuring that the memory of her extraordinary victory remained vibrant and enduring. Deborah's unparalleled success as a leader established a significant precedent in Israel, demonstrating the power of faith and divinely guided leadership. She showed that true leadership does not stem from physical might or military prowess, but is rooted in wisdom, deep faith, and the ability to inspire and unite people toward a common purpose. This transformative model of leadership would go on to influence generations of future leaders in Israel, including its kings and prophets. The prolonged peace that followed Deborah's remarkable victory enabled Israel to grow stronger and develop further as a unified nation. Freed from the perpetual threat of invasion, the Israelites could concentrate their efforts on agriculture, trade, and the flourishing of their communities and daily lives. This era of prosperity and security stands as a clear testament to the blessings of God bestowed upon the nation when they remained faithful to him and his covenant. Yet, as the book of Judges consistently reveals, such periods of peace and prosperity were often temporary, disrupted when the Israelites strayed from God. Inevitably, a new generation would emerge, one that neither knew the Lord nor remembered the mighty works he had performed for Israel. The familiar and tragic cycle of apostasy, oppression, and divine deliverance would once again repeat itself in Israel's history. Nevertheless, Deborah's extraordinary legacy endured, her story continuing to inspire and resonate across generations. Her narrative was retold, her song was sung in remembrance, and her example of unwavering, faithful leadership remained a source of inspiration for the ages. Deborah became a legendary figure in the annals of Israel's history, a woman who, in a time of profound crisis, stepped forward with faith and courage to alter the destiny of her people. Deborah's life and story imparts several invaluable lessons that remain relevant today. It demonstrates that God frequently chooses the most unexpected individuals to carry out his divine purposes and plans. It serves as a reminder that genuine strength is rooted in faith and obedience to God, rather than in military might or political dominance. Furthermore, it encourages us to step forward with courage in the face of adversity, trusting wholeheartedly that God's presence will guide and sustain us. May we, inspired by Deborah, possess the courage to face challenges head-on, the wisdom to lead with integrity and justice, and the steadfast faith to trust in God's workings, even in life's most challenging moments. If Deborah's story has inspired you and you wish to delve deeper into the profound narratives of the Bible, be sure to subscribe to our channel for more insightful content. By subscribing, you'll stay updated on our upcoming videos, where we'll explore more captivating stories and timeless lessons from the scriptures. Additionally, if this video resonated with you, consider sharing it with your friends and family so they too can be inspired. Who can say how many lives may be touched, inspired, and uplifted by Deborah's incredible story of faith and leadership? Thank you for watching, and we eagerly look forward to sharing more with you in our next video. Until we meet again, may Deborah's inspiring example lead us all to live lives of courage, unwavering faith, and divine purpose.